Hey folks, so this is just going to be a pretty quick little video. I'm going to work to keep it under 10 minutes if I can, but you know how I get sometimes. So I wanted to touch on an introduction to coppice and pollard systems on small farms. Now, I mean, this could be a small farm as small as, you know, you've got a backyard in town and you grow some veggies. Or this could be a medium-sized farm like we're at, in that 5 to 15 acre range. Or a big farm that this is just a little bit of what you do on the side. Coppice and pollard has a place on every farm. And honestly, coppice and pollard can be broken down into some pretty simplistic things here. All we're doing is we're taking a tree or a woody perennial, okay, and cutting it down to the ground. Or in the case of pollard, cutting it higher up, and then just letting it regrow. That's it. Super simple. It just seems insanely simple, but like, with all things on a farm, you know, I could say that raising hogs is simple. You buy some piglets, put them out on the field, and then you take them to the processor. Easy as can be, right? But we know if you're a hog farmer watching this, or you're a cattle farmer watching this, or you raise rabbits, you have a garden, whatever, you know that nothing can be boiled down into those simple steps when you actually have to do it. So we coppice and pollard, honestly, I think we're somewhere around a dozen-ish species on the farm at this point, or species within families. So like willow, we've got probably 5 or 6. Oh gosh, actually maybe more than that now. Species of willow that we coppice. So I will, over the course of the next 2 weeks or so here, hit on each of those individual topics and how we manage them differently. So like we have willow pollards and we have willow coppices. And we have different types of pollards and different types of coppices for just willows. And we manage those differently for different products. We're gonna go over real quick some of the products that you can get from all of these different types of coppice and pollard systems on your farm, just so you have an idea of what to expect in these upcoming videos as I hit each of these different species and things that we're doing with those species. So, on your farm, one thing that a lot of us are always using tons and tons of is wood mulch, right? And it's fantastic if you have a resource like our local city dump or yard waste recycling center. They chip and you can buy it for like $7. Sometimes you can get arborists to come and bring you truck bed loads of wood mulch, and that's fantastic, but only if you need a giant dump truck load or can manage to get them to pull in. I've got a wonderful farmer up the road who I've mentioned multiple times. He snags it before I do, almost every time. I've gotten him once or twice. He's always great, and I know we could always go up there and buy a truck bed load off him, or frequently he'll just give it to me. But that's one extra step than just having somebody with a dump bed load just come over and drop it. So being able to chip your own biomass on farm, and knowing too that there's the species you want in there for the different purposes you want. We'll go into some better videos on that, but there are things like jugloan in walnuts. And if you're doing produce gardens, you really want to dodge that. You don't want that in there. If you're just putting it out for, you know, around your gates and stuff, not a big deal that it's in there. You're not going to have grass grow there for a year or two unless you have species that are adapted to that jugloan. So you have better control over what species are in there. You can also we sell cuttings from several species that propagate from cuttings from our pollards and coppices every year. And we plant hundreds of them back out on our farm every year for different spots and different purposes that we'll hit on in later videos. We burn for biochar. So all the pieces that are too ugly or not the right size for this or that, or I didn't want to chip it this week, we'll go ahead and burn it for biochar. And we put the biochar out in our fields. We're going to be grinding up that biochar and adding it into lard-based soaps that we're going to start making again. So that's a huge added product that, honestly, this one coppice behind me would give me enough biochar for an entire year's worth of soap things. Even if we're doing a decent amount of soap, like that'd do it. This would be probably looking at close to a 5-ish gallon bucket worth of biochar from this one thing every year. So you just got a little spot out in your backyard. Boom, you're good to go. So you can do that. We also cut and take brush and use it to make dead hedges around the farm. For wildlife habitat. They create wildlife habitat all season long, obviously by just existing and being brushy habitat that species can be in and out of, both pollinators, mammals, which can be a big issue with your voles, moles, and rabbits and whatnot. Voles, mice, and rabbits. So maybe don't plant them in spots. You know, we'll talk into that into another video. Don't worry. And then on top of that, so you've got the dead hedges that do that. They do that as is. And then we also put them out to trap water as it flows down various spots on the farm, you know, create little beaver dams essentially. And we'll go into depth into that this winter when I start cutting and using some for that. Then if you let them run longer, okay, and let them get bigger, you can cut firewood out of them. Okay, so on a 10-year-ish rotation, 10 to 15 years on some of them even down to 7 if they're real fast growing, you cut them for firewood for your farm. And if you're like me and you burn a quarter to a year, any bit of firewood that you can add in that you didn't have to pay for is fantastic. So that's an awesome thing. And then out in the field, while they're doing all those other services, for us, they create shade for the pigs, which is absolutely awesome because shade for your livestock is insanely important. Having that shade out there allows our pigs to keep grazing even through the hot parts of the day. I'll see them out underneath following around those taller ones, following that shade thing around. So that's less structures that I have to build out on our farm and maintain and worry about the wind blowing over. If it knocks over a tree, it's a small tree, it's not a big deal. I just go out and clean it up, and then I have those products to still use, right? If you're doing craft stuff on your farm, those branches are great for that. Those thicker trunks are great for that. We're gonna try sawing some up with a chainsaw and then rerunning it through a planer or running it through our bandsaw and actually ripping some small pieces of lumber, maybe doing some like cutting boards or something like that in the shop. So there's tons and tons of uses for, oh, and gosh, same things that I'm missing, fodder, right? So you can go through and strip branches throughout the year to give to the livestock throughout the season. You can cut those branches back and let them dry as tree hay. Gosh, I feel like I could just go on and on, honestly, about all the amazing things that the simple process of cutting down a tree or shrubby bush every year or on a cycle, like we'll talk about it with different species, prefer different things. A lot of our willows, most of our willows are annual cuts. A lot of our other species are biannually or 7 to 10 years or 3 to 5 years. We'll go over those on each of the species. So just doing those routine cuts, which is something that, you know, you might just let the tree go completely normal and you don't get any of those products. So just that little bit of management difference can provide so much more value to your farm and to the earth as that plant now sequesters that carbon in ways that are trapping it, and it's drawing down drastically more carbon than it would just standard growing. We notice a lot when we cut coppice, so like these, they grow this tall every year. These are annually cut. So that's over 10 foot tall on some of those branches, and they grow from the ground about 1 inch to 3 inches cut to that tall every year. So that's a lot of added biomass that plant is pulling down. When I do have a couple of willow trees that I don't cut, just to have as a comparison. And they're not that much larger than my ones that grow to be back again that large every year. So essentially, it's like me multiplying the number of trees on my farm exponentially, which is amazing when I only have a 6-acre farm, right? The more that we can grow on our farms, the more useful we can make those pieces of land, both for the wildlife and for our bottom lines. And I enjoy seeing trees. Another thing we do with them is we grow a hedgerow out front, and it's not as big as it will be in the next few years because we're still just planting species every year and moving around and dealing with drought and seeing how that works and getting rid of species and adding species. But eventually, we're gonna lay a hedge on the front row. So then we can stop some of those northern winds from hitting our house. We can stop some of the noise from cars driving down on the road and cows bellowing across the field. And then still providing all those awesome benefits that we want to see for wildlife and for products for the farm. So it looks like I'm about at 9 minutes and 3 seconds-ish. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. I think I've yammered on long enough. You're gonna get to hear me talk a ton more about each of these individual species over the next couple weeks. The last thing that I would like to touch on first, thank you, Hunter Raymond, for signing up to be a Patreon member. I will drop the link to their farm in the description of this video under the Patreon section there. So go check out their farm, give their Facebook a like. I don't know if he has an Instagram or not. I'll ask him later. We've been texting a good bit. So he gets to see, he signed up under the $10 amount. So he's gonna get to see the castration video we've got up. He'll get to see the farrowing videos as they're happening live. And then he will, or well, sorry, not live. I keep thinking in my head that that's what I'm gonna do. And maybe I will wind up doing that eventually once we get this better internet. They put flags out on the road, so I'm like right out front of my house. I'm crossing my fingers they'll be here soon, but they'll be recorded and put up on that Patreon. I will not be putting the farrowing videos up on actual YouTube because I worry about, I mean, you know, the pig's got fluids and stuff, and sometimes things don't go great. So I don't want to post those on there and somebody flag us and get our channel messed up. So we're gonna put those on the Patreon for folks to see under just that $10 mark. That one's pretty low. It's nice and easy. I've got some awesome ideas that I'm gonna be changing up some of those higher tiers over the next couple weeks and adding things in that I think people are gonna be pretty stoked about. So feel free to keep checking in on that and seeing how that goes. The link is always in the show description. And then last thing, if you like our videos, then go ahead and remember to hit the like button on that video so I know to make more of that style of video, because I do kind of keep track of that. If you want to see more of the videos as we're doing these different videos on Coppice and pollard production around the farm, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can see those. Or if you just want to see more pig videos, because especially as we're starting to have piglets, there will be a lot more piglet videos that pop up and more videos of me walking out in the pasture and talking about what we've got going on, especially as we're hitting into winter and how things will change on the farm going into winter. Beyond that, y'all have a great week.